Today we will discuss about distributed databases. These are the contents we will discuss about this distributed databases, database administration, application types, distributed database concepts, goal of distributed database management system and database system, advantages and disadvantages of distributed database management system, and what are the steps to create a distributed database and distributed database design. In that we will discuss about fragmentation, replication and allocation. And what are the different types of distributed database system, object oriented database and SQL3, object properties, methods and client server distributed databases, that is client server architecture. In that we will discuss about 3-tier client server architecture and interaction between the application server and client server, distributed database in Oracle. Let me see one by one. For the first thing is database administration, DBA. So DBA is a resources that supervises both the database and use of the database management system. So it is usually group, but it sometimes it's for refers to the database administrator. So what is database administrator? Database administrator is a person who has a central control of both the data as well as the programs that accessing those database. And responsibilities of DBA. So here we have listed out the responsibilities of DBA. The first one is policy formulation and implementation. In this policy formulation and implementation, the DBA is a main role of access privileges. That is, access privileges means the authorized person only accessing those database will maintaining the access privileges, and security management and disaster planning. If suppose any problem is occurred in case if any disaster means pre-planning for accessing this, that is planning for this disaster planning and archives. And next one is data dictionary management. So the main role of responsibilities for DBA is data dictionary management. Data dictionary management means it is a collection of or otherwise combine the description of metadata or databases of metadata. In this metadata having who are all the ownership and what is the relationship between the tables, everything reside in this data dictionary will be maintained by the DBA. And the other responsibilities of DBA is training, DBMS support and database design. So training means here the DBA gives a training on database management system, how to access the database, and database support for mainly including the section and management. And DBA must evaluate each perspective of DBMS using the checklist. Database design is a main role of DBA, that is how the layout or otherwise either the application structure it implements or designing the entire application structure is the main responsibility for DBA. That is, DBA is responsible for doing the design which making a changes to improve the system performance. Next we will discuss about the application types. In this application types, the data can be stored in different types of databases. One is OLTP, that is online transaction processing and online analytical processing and data mining and data warehousing. First, the differentiate between the OLTP and OLAP is an important role in database management system. Here the OLTP means online transaction processing and OLAP means online analytical processing. So here the main characteristic of OLTP and OLAP means OLTP mainly designed for insertion, that is mainly designed for designing purpose, or otherwise you can easily inserting, updating and deletion purpose for this OLTP, and OLAP is for analytical processing, that is for data retrieval or otherwise reporting purpose we are using for this OLAP processing system. The first one is what are the characterization of common for OLTP and OLAP means OLTP for large number of transactions used in this OLTP system. For example, if you have taken a banking system, in this banking system you can the large number of transactions store it in a large number of transactions store it in this OLTP system. But OLAP system for the transaction of or volume of transaction is less, because it is entirely for retrieval purpose or otherwise reporting purpose only we are using for this OLAP concept, OLAP system. And next one is, what is a statement frequently used in the OLTP system and OLAP system means, here the statement is insert, update and delete statement is frequently used in a OLTP system. So for example, if you take in a banking system, in this banking system different tables, that is either the customer table or otherwise product or otherwise sales table. In this, if you want to adding a new customer table means, in that customer table how can inserting a new records. With the purpose of this statement we are using for the new statement. And next one is, if you want to update any customer record means, in that update statement is used for updating a new records. And next one, if you have a delete a particular customer or otherwise particular record means, you can easily delete a record from that database. It is for using for these three statements for insertion, deletion and updation. And next one is OLAP for data warehousing for using for reporting a reporting purpose. Here if suppose reporting or otherwise reporting reporting purpose means, the mainly used for data retrieval. So what statement is using for data retrieval from the database means, we are using for select statement. So with the help of the select statement you can easily retrieving the data from with the help of the queries. Here select statement is using with the help of the, you can easily retrieving the data from this reporting purpose. And what are the database types is used in OLTP system and OLAP system. Here OLTP system is normalized, that is, what is the purpose of normalization, that is dividing a table in a well structured form is called as normalization. So once the normalized table is used in this particular system means, by default you can easily adding and deleting or updating entirely easy for this. Normalization is very fast. And denormalization means, OLAP for denormalization, that is all the data objects will be stored in a single object is called as denormalization, or all the data multiple objects will be stored in a single table is called as denormalization. So once the three things for consider for denormalization. One is multiple objects stored in a single table. If it is in a single table entire objects will be stored means, the joins will be reduced with the help of the that is combining all objects in a single table. So once the join is reduced means, automatically the good performance will be maintained for this denormalization. A number of tables is more when compared to OLAP system. OLTP system is more number of transactions tables or more number of tables will be used in a OLTP system. Here OLAP is less number of tables used in this OLAP system. Number of indexes used. So what's the purpose of indexes? That is to accessing the data in very fast manner we are using for indexes. Here the limited number of indexes used in a OLTP system, and OLAP is the more number of indexes used in this OLAP system. And what are the types of system and source of the data? So here the OLTP is an application purpose, that is it is the mainly concentrate about the designing purpose. For example, online banking system or otherwise reservation system or hotel reservation system, ticket booking system, everything the application oriented we are using for the OLTP processing. So OLTP system is a source system which is used for the application side. Data origination point and OLTP are main source of the data. But OLAP system is target system. So target system means based on that application we can retrieving a data with the help of the OLTP databases. So that is called as target system. But who used for this user, that is used by whom for OLTP system and OLAP system means, here the end user is used for this application process, and here the business analysis used for this that analytical purpose. And what are the functions of OLTP and OLAP system means, here the function is day-to-day transaction of data will be maintained for this OLTP system. OLAP is for analyst and reporting purpose used in this OLAP system. And what are the queries? In queries means, here the OLTP system for simple which returns a few records, and but OLAP system is complex which involves the aggregation purpose. And what is data mining? Here the data mining, why we go for the data mining? So here we already know this how can creating a database and what are the queries to retrieving a data entire thing. But the only difference is why moving from this data mining is, database is not it cannot predict the any databases, but here the data mining, you can predict the values of the data, is called as data mining. That is, data mining is a extraction or mining of knowledge from the large amount of data or data warehousing. Here otherwise is called as, sometimes is called as knowledge discovery or data mine, or called as data, which is the process of analyzing a data from the different perspective and summarizing all the summarizing it into useful information that can be used for either the increase revenue or cut cost of anything, or otherwise both of the cut costs of and revenue. Data mining software is one of the number of analytical tools which is for analyzing the data. That is, you can easily predicting the data with the help of data mining. This technically, data mining is a process of finding the correlations of or otherwise patterns among the dozens of fields in a larger relational databases. And what is data warehousing? Data warehousing is a relational database that is designed for query analysis rather than the transactional database. So here the mainly concentrate about this data warehousing is historical data, that is which contains a historical data from the transaction data, but can include the data from other resources. Data warehouses separate analysis workload from the transaction workload because organization to consolidate the data from several ways. So you can consider about this, the historical data. With the help of the historical data, you can easily segregate the either the integrator or subject oriented or otherwise any kind of data analytical processing with the help of data warehousing. This data warehousing helps in two things. One is maintaining the historical records and another one is analyzing the data to gain better understanding the business and to improve the business oriented. Our next topic is we'll discuss about backup and discovery. The main concept of this database management system is backup and discovery. So here both the backup and discovery is backup and recovery for backup and recovery is a reference to the various strategies and procedures involved in protecting the database from the data loss. The main thing for using for this backup and recovery is protecting the databases from the among the data loss and reconstructing the database after any kind of data loss. So you can reconstructing the data and how to protecting the data before it is data loss. Reconstructing the data mainly achieved in a media layer recovery, which refers for restoring, rolling forward and rolling back to backup of database files. And what is backup? Backup is a copy of data, that is which includes the important parts of either the control, you can backup from the control files or data files. Backup is a safeguard against unexpected loss and application errors. So if suppose any problem has occurred in application errors or otherwise unexpected data loss, means you can easily refer with your backup of database. So it is backup can be broadly categorized into two ways. One is physical backup and logical backup. So physical backup means it is a physical backup is a copy of files storing a database information system to other location, whether the secondary device, either you can store it in a disk or otherwise tape in the entire copy of data will be copied into either the disk or otherwise tape storage, offline storage such tape. Logical backup means here which contains a logical data, that is tables and all stored procedures will be logically backup from this logical data exported from the database with an Oracle export utility stored in a binary files. And what are the mechanisms used for backup? Backup means the larger database system which provides many tools for protecting the database. Here in most of the cases DBMS takes the snapshot of the tables. That is, a snapshot is a tool which is used for whatever the recent schedule will be recent schedules or otherwise what are the status of the table at instant at a time which will be maintained in a snapshot. Then the database maintains a transaction log every change made since it is the last snapshot. So the partial backup is faster to create and requires less storage space, but it takes longer to the event of the disaster. Backup have been performed in a regular schedule. So the regular schedule, it is performed in a backup storage. The schedule will have a revised partially or particularly for database records and many changes. So every change since the last backup is recorded in a journal or otherwise transaction log. So recently used for recently changed the backup will be stored in a snapshots. If suppose the DBA or otherwise database administrator easily get the recent snapshot of the database backups. And otherwise, if suppose either fire or otherwise disasters might discovery or disasters might destroy all the data stored in the building. So snapshot and journal logs should be copied and moved offsite at least once a day. And what is recovery? So database recovery is a process of restoring a database to the correct state in the event of failure. So that is, if suppose either the hardware failure or software failure means, in suppose during the transaction any failure is occur means, you can easily get from the recovery process for restoring the databases from this mechanism. Database recovery is a service which provides the database management system to ensure the database is reliable and remains in case of the failure. So this technique is introduced concurrency control mechanisms used in a recovery. In this event failure, DBA should prepare to bring the database back to the operation as quickly as possible with the little data or no data loss. In properly planned, recovery will be smooth operation, thereby protecting the users and the databases. If suppose the proper, either the disaster planning, the main purpose of disaster planning is, if suppose any problem is occurred or either any failure is occurred means, how the processing restoring the database from this recovery mechanisms, recovery technique. So in this recovery techniques, if there is a problem, database has to be restored from the backup tapes. First the database loads and load the recent snapshot data, then it examine the transactions. Once they complete the transaction, it is rolled forward and changes rewritten the database tables. If the backup concerned in the middle of the transaction and the transaction was not completed, if suppose middle of the transaction either any problem is occurred or whether it is a transaction is not completed means, DBMS will roll back or remove the initial changes and restart the transactions. Transaction consists of series of changes that must succeed or fail together. Next we will discuss about the distributed database concepts. What is the differentiate between the centralized databases and distributed databases? Centralized databases means a single database located at one site on a network. So the centralized database file which connected with the different kinds of nodes, here this is called a centralized database. The centralized table database only accessing the single database will be located in a different or one network, one site of network. The main advantages of centralized databases is, since there is a one database file means it is easier to get a complete view of data. So what are the transaction, out of the different kinds of tables will be reside in this centralized table. You can easily viewing the databases, and manage and update and backup of data is easier when compared to distributed database. And disadvantages is bottlenecking from multiple users accessing the same file means it should be for slowing down the productivity. The main drawbacks of this centralized domain, once the multiple users accessing the same database means it sometimes slowing down the productivity. And distributed databases means consist of two or more files located at different sites of a network. That is, here the database file is connected with the different two or more files connected with the different sites of networks. The main advantages of multiple database file means user won't interfere with each other when accessing a multiplying data. If suppose one user accessing the particular data means it is not affecting the other site of network. And speed, since speed is increased since the files are retrieved from the nearest location. And if one site is failed means the system can still run it on other sites. And what are the disadvantages of distributed databases means time for synchronization of the multiple databases, and data replication for each different database files is more complicated when compared to centralized database. And what are the different concepts of distributed database concepts is, it consists of, first one is distributed computing system. What is distributed computing system? It is consists of number of processing elements interconnected by the computer network that cooperate in a processing certain task. So processing element, if you have a 3 or 4 processing element means each and every processing element interconnected with the computer that incorporated each and every processing element processing a separate task. And distributed, what is distributed database? It consists of multiple independent databases that operate 2 or more computers that are connected to the and sharing the data over the network. So it is a collection of logically interrelated database over the computer network. And what is distributed database management system? Software system that manages a distributed database. What is goals of distributed database management system? These are the goals, that is to provide the high performance when it is used for the distributed database management system, and to provide the reliability, and to provide functionality to fit an existing environment, to provide cost saving solution. When we are using a distributed data, multiple users can accessing a database in a different site of a network means it is easily for the high performance, and it is reliable and functionality, providing high functionality when accessing the database in a different sites and existing to fit into the existing environment. And what is distributed database system? We will discuss in depth 4. It is an environment which data in 2 or more databases instance is accessible as through the single data where in a single instance. The access may be read only. It may or otherwise you can permit updates 2 or more in many instances. So if you are replicating databases in a different sites means the most of the privileges is read only purpose. If you want accessing any privileges means DBA, the database administrator privileges to this, either it permit the updates 2 or more many instances. The referenced data may be real time or it may be a seconds or hours or day old. What are the steps to creating a distributed database management system? The first thing is designing administration plan, and second one is choosing the hardware database management system and database vendors and network. So choosing a hardware, which hardware you can to communicate with the distributed database, and who is the vendor of database management system, and what network is using for either the LAN network or any network, corporate network is connected to this distributed database system, and setting up the network and database management, connecting the database management system, choosing a location for data, choosing a replication strategy, creating a backup plan and strategy, removing a stress test and load failure. Storing data in a distributed database management system is relations are stored across several sites. Accessing a relation that is stored in a remote site means it occurs message passing is cast and reduce this overhead. A single relation may be partitioned or fragmented across the several sites. For example, if you have a single database means in that database may be partitioned into multiple fragmentation. In this fragmentation is distributed in a different site of networks. With the fragmentation stores at different sites, they are often accessed and replicated at each site where the relation is high demanded. And next one is distributed database design. In this distributed database design, we have concentrate about the data fragmentation, data replication and data allocation. Data fragmentation means breaking up the database into logical units called fragments and assigned for storage at various sites. Data replication, that is processing of storing fragments in more than one site. Data allocation means processing of assigning a database particular fragment into a particular site in the distributed system. The main thing is fragmentation means partitioning a data or otherwise fragmented breaking up the database into a smaller logical unit. Replication means storing a fragmentation in a more than one site, and allocation means assigning a different fragmentation in a different sites. First one we will discuss about the data fragmentation. Data fragmentation is a three types. One is horizontal, vertical and mixed fragmentation. When the schema of fragmentation is definition of set of fragmentation that include all the attributes and tuples in the databases, and the whole database can be reconstructed from the fragments. First one is horizontal fragmentation. Horizontal fragmentation means a subset of tools and a subset of, that is a subset of tools is that relation. So tuples are specified the condition one or more attributes on the relation. It must be attributes and tuples having a different kind of attributes in the relations, which is divided the horizontally by grouping of rows to create a subset of tools. So here a grouping of rows, that is horizontal fragmentation is grouping of rows to create a subset of tools. But the vertical fragmentation means here it keeps only for certain attributes of that relations. It is vertically, that is the relations vertically by the column. The main difference is here the fragmentation by column, and the horizontal means grouping from the rows. It necessary to include primary or candidate key attributes. The full relationship, that is the full relation of that table can be reconstructed from the fragments. Mixed fragments means to intermixing the two types of, that is horizontal and vertical fragmentation. The original relations can be reconstructed applying union and outer join operations in the appropriate order. Data replication. So data replication means processing of storing a data in more than one site. So here the replication is three types of replication, data replication. One is fully replicated distributed databases, another one is no replication distributed databases, and partial replication. That is storing of fragmentation, that is processing of storing of data in a more than site is, once it is a fully replicated distributed database means replicating the whole database at every site. It is for storing purpose and improves the availability. You can visit all the relation from this more than one site in a entire database in all sites. It improves the performance of retrieval. You can easily retrieving data from that each and every more than one site. But that can slow down update operations drastically because it save it in fragments in a that is processing storing a data in a more than one site means it's slowed down for automatically slow down the update the operations. And next one is no replication distributed databases means each fragments is stored in a exactly one site. That is the partitioning of relation will be stored in a exactly only one site, and all fragment must be disjoint except primary keys. It is also otherwise called as non-redundant allocation. Partial replication. Some fragments may be replicated while other may not. So for example, number of copies of ranged from one of other site means it can be easily distributed from that different systems. And next concept is data allocation. Data allocation, each fragment or each copy of fragment must be assigned in a particular site. That is the data allocation, allocating or otherwise allocating a fragmentation from the particular site, it otherwise called as data distribution. Here the choice of sites or degree of replication depends on these criteria. Either the performance of the system it can be allocated, or availability of the goals of the system it can be allocated, and what type of transaction, based on the transaction the data allocation for the particular site, and the frequency of transactions submitted at any time, any site. For example, if any one of the transaction is used for frequently means for the particular site means that transaction will be allocated in a particular site. And the allocation schema is describes fragments to site of the DBMS, the distributed data bases. There are two types of distributed database system. One is homogeneous distributed database system and another one is heterogeneous database system. What is homogeneous distributed database system? Here the identical softwares are used in all sites. That is, for example, here the computer network which connect the three different sites. Here each and every sites having the same set of hardwares, the identical hardware used in different sites. That is Windows operating system, Oracle DBMS and common database structure for all sites. That is identical hardware will be used for the same different sites. And heterogeneous distributed database system is different site uses the different database software. So here the different databases of different operating system and different hardwares is used in a different sites. The structure of database reside in a different site. It may be for different, because the data based on the data partition, different type of operating system used in the different sites. Cooperation between the sites are limited. It is not easy to alter the structure of the database or any other software is used. And next we will discuss about object oriented database and SQL 3. In this object oriented database means, here the mainly when compared to relational database and object oriented database means, here the based on the objects can use it in a object database system. That is, object is an instance of class. This class which have a object have a properties and methods. So here the new objects can be derived or defined from the existing object, and they will inherit the properties and methods of earlier classes. So once the classes having a properties, each and every classes having an object, the object have the properties and methods. So based on the existing object, you can inherit from the new objects. And data object database or otherwise object oriented database management system is a database management system in which the information is represented in the form of object as used in object oriented programming. Object database is different from the relational database, which belongs to the border of the database management system. There are two broad area, that is the two basic approaches to handle the two object oriented data. One is extend the relational model so that it can easily typical for object oriented features. Say relational object oriented database is extended from the relational database model. We can inherit the object oriented features from that OOD models and create a new objects oriented database management system. ANSI is working for new version of SQL, that is called as SQL 99. This SQL 99 mainly used designed for to add the object oriented database features to the SQL language. So SQL statement will be writing from this SQL 99. In 1997, SQL 99 was developed, grouped, merged with the object oriented database management group. There are three features suggested in object oriented capabilities. One is abstract data type, subtables and persistent stored models. What is abstract data types in object oriented model? Here the SQL 99 creates abstract data type to enable developers to create a new types of data derived from the existing type, that is called as inheritance concept. Here if you want to inherit the existing data object means new data objects easily inheriting the existing objects, that is called, it support the inheritance of properties. The types of data stored in a column can be composite with the several existing abstract data types. And what are the advantages of abstract data type means? The DBMS handles the data storage and retrieval, freeing the developer to concentrate on the applications. So data abstract type enables to create and store the data by the applications. It also provides the control over the application development. So when compared, if you want to developing an application oriented, object oriented database system is a more flexible when compared to relational database. And next one is subtotal. Here the SQL 99 provides the second capability is method is to handle the inheritance of by defining a subtables. Subtable inherits all the data is stored in a separate column from the base table, which provide the inheritance similar to the abstract data types, and however the data is stored in a separate columns. That is the base table having a new objects and then derived table. You can easily derive from that base table. These object oriented subtables will not need to include the primary key in the subtables. So subtables, it is not including the primary keys. This is a simple example for customer and the marketable customer. So here the customer table having a customer ID and marketable customer having a contact volume of discount. So if you want to accessing a customer ID in a marketable table means, here the contact and volume discount for two objects used in this contact and volume discount in the marketable customer. Under customer, that is under statement is used for if there is a pointer to another table, means which properties of the table is inherit, you can add the statement as under statement. That is, in this under statement is used for you can inherit the customer ID, address and phone for that marketable customer table. And object methods. So here the persistent stored modules used for this object methods. What is persistent stored models? Here the each and every data objects, that is abstract data type, can be can have a methods or otherwise transaction. So here the methods. So classes having a properties and methods. In this properties means directly accessing from that with the help of the subtable and abstract data type. And next one is if you want accessing a transaction or any method, means with the help of the that is the transaction and methods is called as routines, is called as persistent stored modules. In this persistent stored modules, which consist of all the transactions and routines, will be stored in this kind of modules. They can be written in a SQL statements, and routines are used for several purposes. Can be used for the code support. If you want accessing a triggers, we can add it from this SQL 99. Persistent routines can also be used for methods or for the abstract data types. This is simple example for SQL 99 persistent stored modules and external program. In this database, having a data types and table, different kind of tables, persistent stored module, that is routines and SQL statement and extended SQL code and everything reside in the database. And next one is external program. In this external program, embedded SQL is writing from this external programs and call level interface functions. Here the select statement and all statement refer to this external program into database. So this diagram shows the difference between SQL 99 persistent stored modules and external programs, hosted programs. On the left side, SQL 99 module persistent, that is stored in a external with the database management system. On the right hand, embedded SQL and CLI functions run from the external programs and establish communication with the DBMS. And externally compiled with the programs, the developer more control over the environment and generally execute the faster by compiling those codes. And next we will discuss about client server architecture, or otherwise 3-tier client server architecture. In this 3-tier client server architecture, we will discuss about presentation layer, application layer and database layer. So 3-tier architecture for the first layer is presentation layer, and the second layer is application layer, and third one is database layer. So client layer or otherwise presentation layer is mainly provides the interaction between the user interface and the that is a user interface and interacts with the user. The application program for this layer is presents the web interfaces or forms to client in order to interface with the applications. And application layer means it program for the application logic. It returns all the application on objects and component entirely written for this application layer. This the queries can be formulated based on the user input from the client, and query results can be formulated and sent to the client to the presentation. And database layer is, this layer is handled for the queries and update the request from the application layer, process the request and send the results. So these are the layer, that is the 3-layer database server having a which is stored in all data, which is stored in all database reside in this database layer, directly communicated with the application layer based on the user request. What is the request from this layer? That is what is the data we can retrieve from that layer. You can communicate with the database server, and the resultant value or otherwise interact with the presentation layer. The application will be show it in a presentation layer or client. And distributed database in Oracle. So here how what is the main client server architecture, Oracle database is divided into two parts. One is front end as a client and another end is back end as a server. In this client server architecture, two layer, either the front end application and back end application. If suppose front end application is my VB application or otherwise any application software, means in that interact with the user, mainly handle to requesting, processing and presentation of data managed by the server. So whatever request from the client to server and server to the interaction between the client and server. And backend server as a database server or otherwise either the Oracle database server. It runs Oracle and handles function related to concurrent data on or concurrent data shared access, and also for process the SQL and PLSQL queries. Oracle client server application provides a location transparency, making it transparent to the users. Here the two levels which is provide the Oracle database, distributed databases. One is basic replication and another one is advanced replication. Basic replication means replicates of tables are managed read-only access. For updates, the data must be accessed by the single primary site. And advanced replication means it is for application to update table throughout the replicated database management system, distributed database management system. So here, as we discussed already for snapshot, in this snapshot generates a replicas by means of query called snapshot defining query. So how it is how it is used for this snapshot technique? You just create and snapshot the sales dot orders as a select star from this query for a sales dot orders at HQ US dot Americas. Means here whatever the recent transactions are performed, that the latest transaction will be backup from this, the snapshot will be taken from this, here the sales dot orders backup file. And distributed databases, for heterogeneous distributed databases in Oracle means here at least one database is non-Oracle system. That is Oracle Open Gateway, which provides access to the non-Oracle system. These are the features for non-Oracle system. A distributed transaction is easy and transparent to SQL access, and pass through the SQL and stored procedure is easy when compared to Oracle system. And global query optimization procedure will access for easy manner. Thank you.